Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive, deeply consequential shift in how global politics actually works. We're talking about how modern autocrats have completely rewritten the playbook for taking and keeping power. You see, they've traded in those bloody, overt tactics of the 20th century, the secret police, the midnight disappearances, for something way more subtle. But honestly, it's incredibly effective. It's an absolute masterclass in manipulation. And if we want to understand today's geopolitical landscape, we really have to get a handle on this new playbook. Let's dive right in.
Picture this. It's 1992. A paratrooper named Hugo Chavez tries to take over Venezuela using brute force. We're talking tanks rolling down the streets, soldiers in full military fatigues, the whole shebang. And he fails miserably. He's easily defeated. But fast forward just 6 years to 1998, and Chavez storms the presidential palace all over again. Only this time, there are no tanks. He's wearing a beautifully tailored suit, he's smiling for the cameras, and he's armed with ballots, legitimately winning 56% of the vote. That's stark contrast right there. That's the crux of what we're looking at today. He realized that to subvert a modern democracy, you don't destroy it from the outside with violence, you hijack it from the inside using its very own rules.
So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the rise of spin dictators, fear versus spin, the illusion of democracy, how they exploit the global order, the modernization cocktail, and finally, defending liberal democracy.
Starting with Section 1, the rise of spin dictators, and how they're replacing the gun with the ballot. Because for a long time, the quickest route to power was a violent military coup. Today, it's the voting booth. Take a listen to this quote from Robert Mugabe back in 2008. He asked, "How can a ballpoint fight with a gun?" And that perfectly captures the old fear dictator mindset. Leaders like Mugabe, or Stalin, or Franco, they literally despised elections. To them, power was 100% about terror and ruling with an iron fist. They didn't care for a single second if you actually liked them, just as long as you were utterly terrified of them. The gun was the only language they spoke.
But today, we're dealing with what the source material calls the spin dictator. These are modern autocrats who fake democracy, use super sophisticated media manipulation, and rely on genuine public popularity instead of mass terror to stay in charge. They loudly claim to be true democracies. They pretend to completely respect parliaments and courts. Instead of unleashing secret police on the streets, they hire armies of PR consultants. They obsess over polling data and focus groups to figure out exactly what the public wants to hear. Essentially, they've swapped mass terror for mass deception, making sure the public actually wants them around, or, at the very least, believes there's simply no better alternative out there.
Which brings us to Section 2, fear versus spin, and the changing math of elections. We can actually see this historical shift happen just by looking at election data over time.
If you look back at the 1980s, over half of all dictators won their elections claiming they got over 90% of the vote, sometimes 99 or even a totally ridiculous 100%. It was just a ritual of pure dominance, a way to say, don't even try to resist. But by the 2000s, that number completely plummets to under 20%. Why? Because modern spin dictators know that claiming a 99% victory in a connected, internet-savvy world just looks absurd. It's a joke. It instantly breaks the whole democratic illusion they're trying so hard to sell to the rest of the world.
So, you might be wondering, what's the magic number? Well, research points to 72% as the Goldilocks victory margin. Back in 2004, a prominent Russian political consultant actually pointed out that a 75% win was simply too much. It just screams fake. But 72%? That is just right. It's high enough to show absolute dominance to any local rivals, but low enough to mimic a credible, normal democratic victory. And keeping up that veneer of being a normal democracy is absolutely crucial if they want to attract foreign investment, host the Olympics, and be taken seriously on the world stage.
Moving to Section 3, the illusion of democracy. Let's talk about the paradox of fake elections, because this raises a really fascinating point about media manipulation and popularity.
Think about this. Why do popular dictators commit moderate electoral fraud? If a highly popular autocrat could easily win a totally fair, transparent election with, say, 55 or 60% of the vote, why take the risk of cheating to push that number higher? What is the actual tactical advantage of rigging the game when you already have the votes to win outright? Well, it comes down to a very specific three-part strategy. First off, padding the vote gives them massive parliamentary supermajorities. This is huge because it lets them legally rewrite the Constitution, pack the courts, and extend their terms without technically breaking the law. Second, a manufactured landslide sends a clear signal to the elites. I have absolute, unquestioned control over this system. But the third point is kind of counterintuitive. Moderate fraud actually reassures their own base. If a strongman leader is supposed to be invincible, but then only scrapes by with 51% on election night, their supporters might freak out and think the regime is falling apart. Padding the numbers ensures the base feels confident that their guy totally dominated.
And, the cheating isn't just happening on election day. Spin dictators rig the entire system well in advance. They aggressively gerrymander districts so strategically that even if their actual popularity tanks, they still keep 90% of the seats. They don't shut down the media. They quietly buy it up through friendly oligarchs. They even fund their own systemic opposition. Literally, they clone fake opposition parties designed to run against them and lose. It creates this perfectly controlled, risk-free theater of democratic competition.
On to Section 4, exploiting the global order. From world-weary to world-savvy. Because unlike the autocrats of the past who hid behind giant walls, today's spin dictators are fully plugged into the global system.
Old dictators were terrified of outside influence contaminating their closed societies. Spin dictators, they actively exploit globalization. They launder their wealth right in major Western financial hubs. They hire elite Western PR firms, top-tier lawyers and lobbyists, the exact same professionals walking around your own capital cities to legitimize them. They join international groups like the World Trade Organization or Human Rights Councils on purpose, specifically to bog them down and block actions from the inside. And they push massive amounts of disinformation to polarize foreign publics. They literally weaponize the openness of liberal democracies against us.
Section 5 brings us to the modernization cocktail and the threat of success. This is where we look at what the source material identifies as the spin dictator's fatal flaw.
So, to stay popular and keep up the illusion that they're doing a great job, dictators have to deliver consistent economic growth. But here's the catch. Economic integration causes college enrollment to skyrocket. Globally, it jumped from about 10% in 1970 to nearly 40% today. And a highly educated, post-industrial workforce, that acts like a virus against autocracy. People whose jobs require them to analyze complex data or write software are just way harder to manipulate with cheap state TV propaganda. Eventually, they start demanding transparency, accountability, and the rule of law.
This creates what we call the paradox of progress. The dictator has literally built a trap for themselves. If they halt modernization to keep strict control over what people hear and see, they crash the economy. That kills their popularity, and they eventually have to fall back on messy, violent repression. Poof, they're a fear dictator again. But if they let modernization keep going to get the economic boost, they inevitably empower an informed middle class that will eventually see right through the spin and demand real democracy. For sure, they are damned if they do and damned if they don't.
Let's wrap things up with Section 6, defending liberal democracy. How exactly should global democracies adapt and fight back against this highly modernized playbook?
The source material points to a strategy called adversarial engagement. It recognizes that just completely isolating these countries doesn't work anymore in our globalized world. And direct military intervention, that often backfires disastrously, creating vacuums and feeding the exact anti-Western nationalism these dictators thrive on. Instead, democracies need to stay engaged economically and diplomatically to encourage that modernization cocktail we just talked about. But, and this is a big but, while doing that, we have to build aggressive defenses to stop them from exploiting our own vulnerabilities.
So what does that active defense actually look like in practice? First, democracies have to aggressively monitor dark money and cyber threats coming across their borders. And crucially, we have to stop enabling them. That means cutting off those Western lawyers, bankers, and real estate fixers who make this global pillage possible, starting by banning anonymous shell companies once and for all. We also need to reform international institutions so bad actors can't just hijack the agenda. And finally, democracies have to stand together, loudly supporting global human rights through unified coalitions, rather than acting alone and getting picked off one by one.
But honestly, the absolute most vital takeaway from all of this research is that the West has to put its own house in order. Spin dictators thrive on exporting cynicism. They use troll farms and fake news to exploit domestic polarization in our countries, just to point the finger and say, look, their democracy is just as corrupt as we are. Rebuilding confidence in the integrity and the basic competence of democratic governments at home is the ultimate weapon against their propaganda. When our democracies actually function well, we completely strip the spin dictator of their best argument. So as autocrats evolve from using tanks to exploiting our very own systems, the real question is, can global democracies fix their own houses in time to outcompete the spin dictators? It's something we all need to be thinking about, The whole playbook of power has fundamentally changed, and these leaders know that using the rules of democracy against itself is vastly more effective than crushing it with a tank. The burden is completely on free societies now to plug those vulnerabilities before it's too late. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.